Hate this feeling that we're here today and our season's over, but it's our reality, and we'll use the pain from the season being over, along with deep reflection to make us better, both individually and as a team. I think when looking, even though emotions are still raw, when thinking about our season, I think both things can be true in that you can have pride and also disappointment in the season that we had. The pride is digging out of a 6-21 hole where it easily could have been quote unquote one of those years, and yet players, coaches, staff, everyone kept fighting, and the qualities that embody this organization between the fight, the resilience, the grit, demonstrated it to ultimately end up with a winning season. The disappointment is one, putting ourselves in that position at being 6-21, and then also the way how we finish the season. When you think about our year, you zoom out, and you break it up in thirds. The first third of this season, we were amongst the worst teams in the league. The second third of the season, we were amongst the best teams in the league. And then the last third, we were kind of right in the middle. So it's very rare, although we've done it a couple times over these last couple years. If you look at team building and you have rebuilding teams, competitive teams, and contending teams, it's very rare that you have a season where you actually you have long stretches where you both look like a rebuilding team, a competitive team, and a contending team. And yet, that's what we were. So I think we're very, very self-aware in terms of where we're at. We're in the competitive bucket. That's what we are. And, we will work extremely hard to continue to take those steps. We're in this bridge period from competitive to get to contender. From that standpoint, as hard as today is, as hard as it is to be sitting here talking to you about season's end, I think we do have great hope and optimism with our future. Because as we build that bridge from competitive to contender, we've put ourselves in a very good position with emerging young players, draft capital, and cap space going forward. So with that being said, I turn it over to you guys.
Lawrence, how you doing? I kind of have two questions. Number one, as it relates to Ty, early in the season, Ty said, this is a place where he still wanted to be coaching. This was during the period where you guys were 6-21. With the way that the season ended in these last 6 years have been, you guys haven't made it out of the first round in a couple years. First off, would you still like Ty to be the coach, and will he be the coach going forward in the next season?
Yeah, I mean, Ty not being the coach was never, ever, ever a consideration. Is even at our lowest point when we were 6-21, there never ever was any conversation of Ty not being the coach. Ty's going to be the coach here for a long, long time. And I think when you talk about partnerships and you talk about stable organizations, when you have adversity or you go through tough stretches, you dig in and you work really, really hard at identifying the problems. Everyone takes ownership of the issues, and then you come together and, okay, how can we make things better? I thought Ty and the staff did an unbelievable job of every day showing up with a great spirit and just kept at it. And Ty has a very positive nature. He's done an incredible job. And I understood at the time the questions of, hey, 6-21, what are you going to do? Get rid of the front office, get rid of the coaching. That's kind of the nature of the NBA, and that's what we sign up for. But yet, the organizations that I think that have stood the test of time is when you believe in your people, you work through those issues. A lot of the times, if you study some of the organizations where maybe things there isn't a track record of success. It's the answer usually for them is change. And I think for us, we take total ownership of the mistakes that we make, and also are very solution based on how we're going to fix it and how we're going to fix it together. Ty's an incredible coach, an incredible partner, and one of the characteristics we look for, not just in staff but also in players, are people who are driven to improve. And all of us, are very much driven to improve. And to your point, yeah, it's not only having we got out of the first round in the last 5 years, but this is the first year since 2022 that we won't be participating in the postseason. So there is a great deal of anger, frustration, disappointment within, and we're very, very determined to continue to improve. We knew when we made the trade in the middle of the year that there was going to be an adjustment period, and it's a little bit interesting when you consider it. The 30 games prior to the trade deadline and the 30 games after the deadline, the records are pretty comparable. And that's taking into account that Darius missed a month. We had Darius's first practice actually happened in April. No shoot arounds just because of the density of the schedule in March. And to come out and do what we've done, I think Ty, the coaching staff, and the players deserve a lot of credit to be able to be so adaptable, because that's a challenge. I mean, how do you build chemistry? How do you work through things when there's no time to practice? One of the players you traded for in Darius can't practice for the first month and can't play in games, and now also the back-to-backs, and that you have to deal with minutes restrictions. So I think Ty did a terrific job. His staff did a terrific job as well, and yet at the same time, we're all disappointed at both with the start and the finish, and know that we're going to continue to work hard to figure out better solutions going forward.
And then if I can, I know it's only 48 hours since the season ended, but this is the 7th year with Kawhi and you guys having a partnership together. There were some reports that around the trade deadline, teams had called about Kawhi's availability in the trade market and such. He is going to be extension eligible this summer. He does have 1 year left on his deal. Number one, were there any trade conversations with teams around the deadline? And number two, is this a partnership that not only on your end would you like to see continue with Kawhi, not just going forward this coming season, but along down the road, but also do you also get that sense from him that he would like to be here for a long time as well?
No, that's a long question.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. Good question. I understand the question, and the questions came, basically once we traded James and Zoo. Our plan is to win with Kawhi. We obviously shown as an organization that we want to continue and we are driven to win. So at the appropriate time, we'll sit down with Kawhi and, very similar to 2024, lay out our plan, and if our goals are aligned, then we'd like to win with Kawhi.
Lawrence, when it comes to Darius, I know that organizationally, both due to his health and his age, there's a sense that his best basketball could still be ahead of him. And I think we had the chance to see glimpses of that, both with just his increased three-point rate and some of the things that Ty was able to put in for him in such a short period of time. Then on the other end, we also saw, particularly against Portland and then also in the playing game against Golden State, that teams will try to go at him defensively and make him guard. With what you're able to see this year, knowing that he's going to be a big part of what you guys are trying to build, how much will his strengths and weaknesses be taken into consideration when you're looking at the right pieces to bring into this roster?
Yeah, and obviously, Darius, a two-time All-Star, has found ways to be a high level player. Like, we didn't expect he was going to have a growth spurt, but I do think there's a couple things with Darius that will happen. One, he'll get 100% healthy, and we feel very, very good about the plan in place to get him there. Two is, similar to what you saw with Curry's development, is strength. And he's done, since he's been a Clipper, he's done a very good job of locking in the performance room. But the off season is the time where you can make great gains with your body. And I think when you look at in this league, the smaller guards who have been able to excel, it's it's the strength part of it. Either they have the fire hydrant type bodies where they're able to guard up just because they have a lower center of gravity. B, they have elite speed that it just, but on the defensive end, like this is no stranger even when you watch the playoff series that Darius was involved with Cleveland. So I think strength is going to play a huge part of it. And then when you study what he's done, I think on offense we had 123 PPP offensive rating, which Denver, I think, had the number one offense rating at 121. So when he was on the floor, he quarterbacked an elite offense. To your point, just in terms of, with his scoring, his playmaking, I think he'll get even more comfortable because the system really changed a great deal, but we had no time to actually work on it. James and Darius, both terrific players, but very different. So I think now with the benefit of an offseason to work with Ty, and to really work on getting an offensive system in place that will not only leverage his great strengths, but also be able to complement him. I think typically, having great size and length around him, having rim protection, can help compensate for the fact that, he's not extremely tall, for his position.
Just two quick ones, but just to follow up on that, I mean, the defensive side of the ball was a bit of a struggle for him. We saw that late in the season. I guess, how do you kind of just land to build something around the fact that, teams went at him? I mean, Keith Santos, Al Horford, especially in that game, they put him in everything. The Blazers did as well. How do you plan to counter those type of things?
Yeah, well, I think number one is, and I think Darius has done it and capable of it, is you have to take these, and you take these as personal challenges. And the other thing is all the guys you listed, those are like Guy Santos is 6'8", Horford's, 6'10", 6'11". And even when you go through like who Darius would guard in Cleveland, and the fact that with our personnel with Chris Dunn and DJJ, those guys are typically going to guard the point of attack. So Darius then is put on bigger players. But there's a number of things that he can do, strength being number one. Two, and he's done this, give great effort and to be a complete pest, on defense. You have to be an agitator. I go back to think about our playoff series that we had against Dallas and how good a job Kyrie did defending. So you have to apply great ball pressure. And then between Ty Lue and Jeff, they'll put them in positions to be successful. Even though we're a switch-heavy team, we actually adjusted through the course of the year where we didn't switch nearly as much, so you can keep your true matchup. So I think between his strength, him taking the challenge, and us putting him in a position to be successful, and yet it has to fit what makes the team the best. So defensively, if you look at it, it's pretty interesting. The last 55 games, right, where we went, 36-19, we were 10th on defense, and we were 6th on offense, and we had a net rating of 7. So it actually was our best stretch. So, although I don't push back that there are going to be times that his size is not to our advantage, but over a 55-game sample, and I don't know how many of those games he played, but a lion's share of those, I imagine, we were a top 10 defense. So, and when he was in Cleveland, he also was part of a terrific defense. So I think it's very doable, and I think it will get done.
Another guy you guys acquired, Ben Mathurin, I feel like he had a really strong start with that game, I think against Denver. Saw some ebbs and flows, highs and lows with him. He talked about going through some injuries, but what did you guys see out of him? Did you guys see enough out of him? And what is kind of the focus with him entering an offseason where he's a restricted free agent?
Yeah, I think, we for Ben, first time being traded, and we have very, very different offensive systems. And to throw him in right from the beginning, I think post All-Star was the leading bench scorer. I think, you saw, games like, talk about that Denver game where he had 38. I thought he was very, very good against Golden State. And obviously, because we knew that his three-point shooting would level up to where it was. I think, he's fierce. He's competitive. I think he's learning, for us to challenge. And I think he did a good job of it is to be a two-way player. And I think you see him take the challenge on the ball. And it's a big adjustment because different style of play, who you're playing with, the different combinations. So I think he was figuring that out, as well as dealing with some different injuries. He's extremely tough and kind of resilient guy who just will fight through stuff, which we like and respect. And he's a restricted free agent, so we have the right to match any offer. But I think, Ben did a lot of good. There's obviously, as a young player, there's a lot of improvement that can be made. And as we've seen here, both with current players and guys that had played here, is, there's guys make huge gains. You think about, Kawhi had a career scoring year in year 14. Brook Lopez did things in year 18. Derek Jones had a career year in many regards. My point is, at 23, some of the weaknesses that Ben have, he's going to get incrementally better at those things because he's a worker. I think he has good DNA. And, with free agency, like I said, he's a restricted free agent, so we have the right to match. And at the appropriate time, we'll kind of, can we find a deal that works for both sides? And that's how it's supposed to work, not just with Ben, but with John and anyone else. We're in a, there's two sides to it. It has to make sense for both sides.
Lawrence, going back to Kawhi, you've kind of praised him over the years of being a great partner with this team, and obviously that's not just a salary thing, that's input into how this roster is built, specifically with him in mind. So what has been the feedback since the loss Wednesday night regarding that, and where do you feel like this team, from a personnel standpoint, needs to improve, whether that's the draft or free agency?
Yeah, and some of you know, so our process is a little bit different than others. So the way it works is, yesterday, I met with the entire team and organization, basketball ops. We do it all together. We're all one with this, and I want everyone hearing the same message. And then we tell our guys, in terms of exit interviews, our staff pours a great deal into them. We give our guys at least 7 to 10 days before we're going to reconnect, because I think the emotions are too raw, and we owe them too much and invest too much to just do a 30 to 60 minute meeting, thank them for the season, and act like it's seashells and balloons. We never do that. We do a very, very comprehensive player development plan, which captures the good, the bad, and what the next steps are. What do we need to focus on individually and as a team going forward? And then we also, in order to get to the whole truth, is we speak to every one of our players and staff to capture their thoughts on the season, and also how can we get better. So that process hasn't started yet in terms of where we meet with it. So generally, like I said, yesterday was more my truth of kind of how I saw the season. And then I will get everyone else's truth, and then we'll give everyone a player development plan, which includes on court, in the performance room, is if there's any from a medical standpoint, areas of emphasis, and then from a mental performance standpoint as well, from a nutrition standpoint. The group does a terrific job of, there's an analytical evaluation, and everyone who basically interacts with our players is part of this plan. And then we sit down, and then everyone will talk to that specific player. So it's a detailed process, but one that from both sides I think are very, very beneficial.
Just the second part of that question, just where do you see this team needing to improve after you saw, how the season ended, how the season progressed, like from a personnel standpoint, with the tools that you have available?
Yeah, so I think first our process is, okay, if we bring back everyone from this existing team, have a full offseason, full training camp, realistically, where do we think this team is, both in present and the future? Based on the contracts that you would have to sign the different people to, can we build a contender with that as the base? And we start from there. I think skill set wise, you could look at it and say, okay, rebounding obviously was an issue. We went from second in rebound percentage to 25th. You could say passing and maybe some secondary ball handling. even though, we started the season, when we were 6-21, I think we were 29th in turnover percentage. We were better in the second half of the year. We finished 19th, but still secondary ball handling would be a good additive. You can never have enough shooting. And so we look at first, okay, what percentage of that can we get internally? How do we factor in? We knew when we traded Zoo and James that our rebounding would take a hit. Then Yannick goes down, Isaiah goes down. The Brook is an unbelievable blockout guy. He's never historically been a great rebounder, but his blockout percentage is very, very high. So how can we count to how we can be a better rebounding team? So we'll take all those things in consideration. What can we replace internally? Where do we need to go externally? And more importantly is every single move we make has to answer one basic question. How does this help us get back to contention? And that's kind of the prism that we look at. We take great pride in that we've had 15 consecutive winning seasons, but that's not our North Star. It's aligned with our organizational ethos of that we compete every single year, but the North Star is to get back to contention and how long that's going to take and the steps we need to take. So that's how we kind of answer with any roster move. How does it help us get closer to contention?
Hey, Lawrence. When you look at John's season, John Collins, obviously different roles, went through the injury. What did you like, or what was your focus on his entire season as a whole?
Yeah, I think John, in some sense, his season kind of mirrored ours a little bit. The first 20 games as a team we struggled, and I think he struggled. And I give John a great deal of credit because it would have been easy, especially for, this is his 9th year in the league. He's had, he was coming off a great year in terms of the games that he played in Utah. And things weren't working great, both as a team and as him. And he stayed the course. He kept on coming in early every morning, working with, Jeff Van Gundy and Jeremy Castleberry. And then he had a 35-game stretch where he was incredible. And he was on a great heater. I mean, he finished up, I think, career high from 3. And I think he had a career high in steals. And again, hit big shots. His energy, enthusiasm, his spirit, very, very contagious. And I got a lot of respect for how he stayed the course. There's that old adage, everyone can win together, who can lose together? And to see his character during that, that first third of the season, when things not only just going bad for the team, but they're going bad for him, and he stayed the course, we were really, really happy that John had such, that extended stretch. And then, to your point, Isaiah goes down. We're trying to, how are we going to, basically have the backup 5 with Yannick out. We eventually brought him off the bench. He had a really, really big game in Sacramento. Then there were some other games that didn't go as well for him or the team. And, it's tough. He was dealing with some injuries at different points. Again, another guy who kind of, grinded it out. But, yeah, have a lot of appreciation for John. There were a lot of things that he brought to the table with his athleticism. I think he's capable of even rebounding at a higher level, but some of that's we put him in some different positions. But I think all in all, John had a very good season.
And then on the injury front, obviously Brad had the early injury and Yannick later on. Are there any updates on those two guys in terms of how they're doing in their rehab process? Yeah,
I think the updates are these are lengthy processes. Brad's in this building anywhere from 3 to 4 hours a day. I got a great deal of both empathy and respect. Brad came here to be the starting 2 guard, and and then unfortunately, between his knee and then his hip, his season was totally derailed. And emotionally to be able to handle that the way he has, and to be as resilient as he has been in terms of the work he's put into it, I think he's very, very determined, not just to get back on the court, but to get back and play at a high level. In Yannick's case, this young man has such an incredible spirit. I mean, he is a special, special young man. And, obviously a great deal of disappointment when he was injured. Right foot Liz Frank, injury, and yet he leads. We have this, you guys have been in the facility, but we have this, scoreboard that charts every single shot. He's taken the most shots, and the only thing I'm concerned about is when he comes back, he just may be a one-leg shooter, like one leg kneeled up, but he's doing as much work as he can. So I think he's pretty close to 5 weeks post-op. In 3 more weeks, so week 8, he'll be able to start, bearing weight on it. He's been non-load weight bearing for the first 8 weeks. His foot looks good, but it's just premature to say exactly return to play. But what we will do is, at every major interval, we'll update you on how things are going. It's just with the Liz Frank surgery, it's the same thing Chet Holmgren had. There's just such a wide range, and we really just have to see how his foot responds.
Lawrence, have you gotten any inkling how Brooke and Nico, what they're thinking about their future going forward?
Not yet, just because we haven't met. Like I said, is that we'll sit down with them within the next couple weeks and have very, very in-depth conversations with both. In regards to Brooke is an everyday guy, and regardless if our record was 6-21 or if we were 20-7, he's the same guy. Showed up 8:30 every morning on the court, working on his game with Jeff Van Gundy, not just on offense, on defense. When Ty told him that he was out of the rotation, his first question is, how can I help the team? And, he jumped in the rare category. What does he have? Over 18,000 points, 2,000 blocks, 1,000 threes. There's a reason why he's everyone's favorite teammate. The different places he's gone, he leads by example. He's all about the team. Nico's been a huge part of us for the better part of almost a decade. Great teammate, connector, winner. Another guy that's willing to do whatever the team needs. Super, super coachable. Think he may have also set some sort of record for percentage of shots that were threes, and he's a terrific guy, and we're very, very fortunate to have both those guys. But in terms of their futures, I think it's too premature.
Hey, back here.
What's going on here?
Good to see you. Upbeat question for me, but do you think the Aspiration investigation affected the season at all?
No, and I think if any of you know Steve and know Steve's integrity, you know there's nothing to it. And I can't comment on the investigation, but I will stand by what I said up here back in September, October, whenever it was, that that we believe and we're very confident we're on the right side of this.
One more for you. I'm just curious about the development of Kobe Sanders and Jordan Miller this year. I mean, those are two guys who are late second round picks. I think Kobe had the first 3 off the bench in the playing game, and then Jordan had the second. How have you guys been able to take guys who at times have looked like they're bound for the G League and be contributors in big games?
Well, I think first you have to give them a great deal of credit. With Jordan, he was our summer MVP in terms of what he put into it. And to go back, and I know we've talked about this before, but, it would be very easy for Jordan to be pissed off at me, at the organization, for waiving him. And instead, he kind of, took stock and thought about the investment he's made, but also the investment that the organization made. And we told him when he was making the decision that we believe you can be a rotation player. And it's awesome to see him proving everyone right, and more importantly, proving himself right. You could see the work he put into his body and how he's leveraged that strength. And, the slow step, I don't even, there's like the footwork he has is incredible. But what I was really, really proud of and excited for Jordan was last year when he went through a tough stretch, things kind of went a little bit south for him. This year, even if he had some tough games, he just stayed the course and very much showed that he's a rotation player. And that he's also, what I love is his thirst for growth. And you saw his improvement, and he wants to continue to get better, and he never stays the same. So super, super proud of Jordan. He makes you really, really happy to see kind of the things kind of come to fruition. He deserves a great deal of credit. coaching staff a great deal of credit for working with him. So there's a lot of people that go into every one of our players' success, and there's a lot of people behind the scenes. Happy for Jordan. In Kobe's case, it's very, very challenging for a rookie to be able to embrace all the different roles and still stay ready. And I talked about Yannick's spirit. Kobe has that same incredible spirit. He has great appreciation for where he's at, and yet he combines self-awareness with a high level of confidence. For him to shoot 41% from three, this was a very, very unique season. In the past, we young players for different reasons, there weren't really pathways for them to play, and so Jordan, Kobe, Yannick, for those guys, and I think it was interesting. I'll get back to the Kobe piece, but we started off the season as the oldest team in the league. We finished with 7 guys in the rotation with their age averaged out at 24. So and we knew this is kind of the bridge building that we're going through. But Kobe, I a lot of respect for him. You go back, for those of you, because all you guys, do a great job following us. You think about Summer League and the last Summer League game he had against Memphis, and he got back in the lab and spent, all of August and September here. And I think when you have great self-awareness and humility, it teaches you what you need to work on. And he locked into what the coaches were doing with the vets, and very, very proud of Kobe's development. And I think there's a lot more to tap into, and he'll work extremely, extremely hard to continue to improve his game.
All right, 3 more.
Yeah, Lawrence, you mentioned bridging that gap between competitive to contender. You guys obviously have more, at least different assets than you've had in previous years, and you're 1 year closer to that relatively clean 2027 cap sheet that we talked about a lot. How does the organization view this offseason in terms of the timeline from getting to competitive to contender? Are you guys trying to catapult this roster back into that tier now, or are we in the middle of a multi-year retooling process to getting back to that point?
Yeah, good question. I think first, again, we look at, okay, if we bring back everyone, what does that look like? And then we literally have, I don't want to say hundreds, but we have a lot of different iterations and scenarios to, okay, like we have 4 tradable firsts at the draft. Do you use those and you go get a superstar player? There's other avenues where it's more of a methodical build. The one thing I do know is this: we have the option of either operating at a cap space or using our full non-taxpayer mid-level. Either way, we're going to get the team better. We'll add at least one significant piece to the roster. And there's so many different potential options, some within our control, some that aren't. But it's our job, as I call us, the back office, to literally, turn over every stone, every rock, to figure out how can we get this team back to contender status. So there's more questions than answers in terms of, how long it's going to take. But you do put yourself in a position that there's all these different pathways. Okay, the opportunity to make a big jump this summer. Okay, the opportunity where it's at each transaction cycle you're taking steps towards it. So that's all the work behind the scenes, and time will tell how long it will take to get there. But other than saying, okay, this summer, what do we have? We're in the position either to operate as a space team potentially, or using a non-taxpayer mid-level, along with there's a chance we get a high lottery pick. We have 2 seconds. If the lottery pick from Indiana doesn't convey, well, we still feel really, really good that we'll have 2 future firsts from that trade. There's decision to be made that we have free agents. Some are our options. Some are their options. We have, guys that are extension eligible. So there's a lot of different things in play.
Just to kind of follow up on that, in 2018, you guys drafted obviously a really good player, but decided to, had a chance to Kawhi and PG. And
You can say his name.
But just had a chance to get Kawhi and PG and obviously accelerate yourself into championship contention. Now things didn't go how they're supposed to, but like when you look at this offseason when you could have a lottery pick or could have two futures and Steve obviously wants to win, Ty wants to win, so you want to win. Like how do you kind of view that as far as like did that maybe impact how you view now that maybe you should pace yourself into that contention talk? Or like, do you see like if you have a chance to do it right away, you'll just do it again? Like, how do you kind of view that if that makes sense?
You know, it makes sense. I think a couple things. One is we want to win while adhering to the plan, right? That we have a plan in place in terms of preserving max space. We have draft capital. We have young players. So literally every decision we make is we have to be disciplined to the plan. Now we go back is, okay, well, you go all in back in 2019. Does that then give you hesitation to go all in again? I think, again, with it is, and not to, you don't get the benefit of hindsight, but I think we would do that trade without knowing what's happened because you're trading for Kawhi Leonard, who was coming off a championship, Paul George, who was third in MVP voting. They were both in their prime. And, unfortunately, like we had a run of contention. Unfortunately, for different reasons, we weren't able to capitalize where we wish we could have done more winning during that time. We didn't, but we don't live in regret. Now, you're always learning, but I also think you can't just let one situation then blind you. Oh, I'll never do that again. And yet at the same time, you learn for it. So I don't believe in dealing in absolutes, always, never. I think you always have, our responsibility is to look at every single situation and how we can get the team better. And we're not gun shy. Yet at the same time, we're not stupid. We may not always make the best decisions, but we don't feel that onus of, all right, we got to go all in. Like it's all right if it is more of a sustainable build. Yet at the same time, I'll never discount that if there's a way to be opportunistic and, get, player or players that are of the right age, that can make a big difference. I don't think because, quote unquote, Shea, who's now, a great player, that you now become frozen because of it.
Last one. Lawrence, I don't normally ask questions like this, but I feel like it's relevant going into an offseason like this. What are you telling your fan base as far as why they should stick with not just this franchise and this team, but everything that y'all are building? Because clearly, it seems like you guys are asking for patience from them, and it's been a tough 5 years as far as expectations versus results. So, what do you need from the fans as far as like what you're telling them to hold on and stick with you guys?
Yeah. Well, I think, look, we have, as Clipper fans, we have a great appreciation because there's a choice. There's two teams in town. And our fans embody very much what we're at, where we are as an organization. They're hard charging, they're passionate, they're resilient, they're gritty, they're tough, and they've made a choice. And we've always been very honest with our fans. When we were 5-16, we sat down with our fans and explained everything about where we're at and where we're going. And fans have every right to expect the best from us. No one puts more pressure on ourselves to win and do better than everyone wearing a Clipper shirt. We feel a great deal of responsibility to our fans. And they've been terrific. I think if I'm a fan and I'm not into PR or spin, so I'll just deal with facts that we've had 15 winning seasons in a row. And people say, well, is that a big deal? And I said, look, like I said earlier, it's not our North Star, and we do not use it in any way as taking a victory lap. But let's put it in context. The Clippers, for a long time, were the laughing stock of the NBA. 41 seasons, they had 6 total winning seasons. Okay, the groups that have been here, and it starts way back. Go back to when Neil O'Shea was here, and he and the trades he made, and then Doc, and then all the Ty Lue, and all the different people that have occupied the different decision making seats. But it's 15 years of winning seasons. I think there's, when you look at, okay, well, who else is up in that area? You got the Showtime Lakers, you got the San Antonio Spurs, where it bridged, Robinson and Duncan eras, and you have the Utah Jazz led by John Stockton and Karl Malone. So you have to, the reason why winning's important, and especially in this era where there was so much talk of, tanking this season, that it is a choice. And Steve Ballmer, our mission is we are always going to compete to win. Now, Steve wants to win championships. We all want to win championships. So we're trying to win while building a bridge. So if I'm a fan, why am I excited? Well, the Clippers made a big pivot this year. Okay, that when we traded James, when we traded Zoo, those were incredibly hard and difficult situations. But it requires that you must be honest about yourself and honest about where you're at as a team. And usually teams, when you study team building, that if they're in that contender status, they usually take this huge drop to rebuilding. We're not going to do that. So if I'm a Clipper fan and I'm paying money, I know, wait a minute, the basement is competitive. Whereas I could be a fan at many different organizations, some highly performing organizations that have totally bottomed out. And you've had to deal with 19-win seasons and 22-win seasons. That's not happening here. But what is going to happen is, okay, well, all of a sudden now I went from the oldest team to a team that has 7 players that average out at the age of 24 in the rotation. Plus, I have huge, cap space coming down the road where I can get max players. Plus, I finally am getting that piggy bank that was empty with draft capital. Now it's getting full with, call it a coin flip chance of getting a high lottery pick in a loaded draft. If it doesn't convey, I got two future firsts from that, plus the other draft capital that, and then I look at, okay, well, who owns the team? The best owner in sport. Not in basketball, in sport. Okay, and where do we play? In the greatest arena in the world. Not in this country, in the world. And I have a terrific head coach in Ty Lue, who's a champion, who has shown time after time his ability to adapt. It happens to be the greatest market in the NBA in Los Angeles. So I'm fired up. Now I'm disappointed. They feel like I feel. We're all pissed off. No one wanted to be up here today to talk about the offseason. We want to be playing in Phoenix tonight to then go get ready to go to Oklahoma City. But this is our reality. And as I said when I opened, we will use this pain along with reflection to be the fuel to get better. I love our fans. Our fans have been awesome. People talk about the wall, which is amazing. And I've shared this before. Because it's a choice in this town, those who have chosen us, there's a special quality to it. The Lakers are a legacy brand. We're kind of that startup, but it's a startup now under Steve's leadership that has established certain baselines. Now, we know we haven't delivered we've only had one deep playoff run, okay? We've had other successful playoff runs, but we know in the last 5 years we haven't won a playoff series. We deal with that reality. And we also deal with the reality that every day we're going to grind to continue to look at every pathway to get this team back to being a contender. So love our fans, love their support, and when they're upset, they have every right to express it, and but yet they've been extremely supportive along the way.
Thank you guys.